I'm Daniela, and I am the SolidWorks and SolidWorks PDM SME for SPK and Associates. Today I wanted to go over how to automate certain tasks using your workflow. So the goal here is to go over some popular practices, some things that I do pretty frequently in workflows, and see if you can apply them. If you can't apply them now, it's good to have in your back pocket. Everybody's process grows and evolves, so you may find use for these features down the line. So to get started, we're looking at a pretty straightforward workflow. This is just an example. I find that everyone's workflow is very, very different, and it's really what fits for your company. But here we have something very straightforward, and we're going to be focusing on the transitions. For example, submit for approval. Here you can actually set conditions. So let's say that you usually have doc control go in, or a checker or a reviewer go in and make sure that there's a revision variable or that there is a description. If that is the case, you can absolutely make their lives a little bit easier by going into the conditions tab. Now what I did here is I actually clicked on the submit for approval transition, and then I clicked on the conditions tab to get to this menu. Here you can select a variable, comparisons, you can say must equal, you can really set your own logic here, your value, and your configuration path. So you can really tailor this to what you want to check for specifically. Now you can make sure that it has a very specific value, or you can say must have a value, cannot be blank. So that's very helpful for description. You don't always know what that description is going to be. You just want to make sure that there is something in that field. So this is a great way to do that and to reduce the amount of manual oversight or checking. So highly recommend this one if you do have folks that look for certain things. Moving on, we also have the Actions tab, and it's right next to Conditions. Here you have a plethora of activities you can do. You can set a variable, which I find very helpful, and I do fairly often. So you will want to go ahead and click on Add Action. Once you are inside the Actions menu, you'll have a screen that looks like this. Here you have some options. You can execute a command, a task, export data. I have to say the actions I use the most are execute task and set variable. Now set variable is pretty straightforward. This essentially means that you have a variable that already exists, and let's say upon transition you want this variable to be set to a certain value. So an example of that is previously released. So let's say once a file is released, we want that to be yes, and only when it's released. So we do not want this at the beginning on our workflow or when a file is set to review. We only want to set this variable when the file is released. So a prerequisite is to have this variable already created. Once you do, it should appear in your drop-down list. You may also need to have this added to your data card. And here you can specify the value, yes, no. This drop-down menu over here also gives you some other options as well. So if you don't want to choose yes, no, you have something else in mind for your set variable task, feel free to peruse here. You can also populate with the last comment used, the timestamp. You have a lot of options at your disposal. And typically I run it for all files. So that is also very, very helpful. Going back to one other very frequently used automation task will be executing a PDF. So this may take a video of its own, but I do strongly recommend setting this up. And workflow-wise, you can do it the very same way we just looked at set variable. You'll want to click on your transition where you'd like that PDF to be generated. Here you'll want to go to Actions and Add Action. As you can see here, you'll want to select Execute Task. And then you can select the task that you would like to run, usually a PDF task. There are some prerequisites associated with allowing automatic PDF generation. For example, you do need to create that PDF task. You will need to specify a few things like permissions, who is allowed to run this task, and also on the infrastructure side, you'll want to make sure you have a task server. So I'd be happy to go over that a bit more in depth in another video, how to set that up. But that is a very popular one. If you have users who are manually creating PDFs upon release or when files are at review, I strongly recommend looking into automating that feature. For more SolidWorks tricks and tips, please stay tuned.